Welcome to Outbreak Brief, the podcast that takes you inside the world's most dangerous infections.
Right.
And in today's deep dive, we're tracking a microscopic villain that, well, it basically plays the longest game imaginable.
Oh, absolutely. The
Yeah,
longest.
Yeah, it's this invisible invader that honestly nearly every human being will encounter at some point, and it's capable of lying dormant in your cells for like decades before it just suddenly rewrites your DNA to trigger a really deadly transformation.
It's a master of stealth, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it moves silently, it waits patiently, and it fundamentally alters the biology of its host.
Yeah.
And we are talking about a pathogen that operates on just a staggering scale.
Yeah, let's talk about that scale. So I want you to imagine walking into a crowded room. Just look around at the people standing near you.
Mm-hmm.
Statistically speaking, nearly everyone in that room has been infected by this pathogen at some point. In the U.S. alone, there are 42 million people currently harboring disease-causing strains of it.
Yeah, 42 million is a huge number.
It's wild. But for 9 out of 10 people, their immune system will just quietly fight it off within a couple of years. Like, they will never even know they had it.
Exactly. Completely asymptomatic.
Right. But for the remaining few, this quiet agent will eventually unleash a pretty devastating illness. And if you're listening to this right now, the stark reality is that you too are likely part of this statistic.
It's a very sobering reality to confront, you know. The pathogen we're dissecting today is human papillomavirus, or HPV.
Right.
And to understand how a virus can hide in plain sight among 42 million Americans, I mean, with 13 million brand new infections occurring every single year, we really have to examine its biological blueprint.
Let's do that. Let's look at the blueprint.
Okay, so HPV is a non-enveloped, double-stranded circular DNA virus, and it's from the Papillomavirus family.
Wait, let's unpack that architecture for a second, because, non-enveloped circular DNA sounds highly specific. What does that actually mean for, its ability to survive and infect us?
Well, it basically means it is incredibly resilient. I mean, many viruses we think about, like, say, influenza, they have this fragile lipid envelope surrounding them.
Right, like a little fat layer.
Exactly. And that makes them relatively easy to destroy with just soap or hand sanitizers. But HPV doesn't have that envelope.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, its genetic material is protected by a tough, geometric protein shell. And that genetic material is circular DNA, which is highly stable. It doesn't break down easily.
So it's basically wearing armor.
It really is. But, we shouldn't think of HPV as just one single entity. It's actually a sprawling family of over 200 distinct types.
Right. And from what I understand, those 200 types basically operate in 2 main factions. Is that right?
Yeah, that's a really good way to look at it. So, yeah, the low-risk types, specifically type 6 and 11 are the most common ones here.
Okay.
And in virology, we call these non-oncogenic, meaning they do not cause cancer. What they do cause, though, are warts.
Got it. Just warts.
Right. Then on the other side, you have the high-risk types. The most notorious ones are types 16 and 18. These are oncogenic.
Meaning they cause cancer.
Exactly. They're the ones with the biological machinery that's actually capable of causing a malignancy.
To visualize how this actually works once it gets inside you, I just keep picturing a computer hacker.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, like the virus doesn't just smash the computer with a hammer, right? It slips malicious code into the very fragile spots of the host's genetic programming.
Right.
And specifically, it targets basal stem cells, which are deep down in the skin or the mucosal layers.
Exactly. Deep down.
Right. So it finds a vulnerability where our DNA strand is kind of prone to breakage, and it integrates its own circular DNA right into our genome.
Yeah.
It's basically rewriting the operating system.
That's exactly what it's doing.
Yeah.
And the precision of that hack is, well, it's what makes it so formidable. But unlike, an acute thriller where an outbreak just explodes overnight, like Ebola sweeping through a region.
Right. The typical Hollywood virus.
Yeah, exactly. HPV's history with humanity is a slow, chronic burn. I mean, it hasn't just jumped to us recently. It's been evolving alongside humans for millennia.
Wow.
Yeah, spreading through the most fundamental human interactions, which is just basic skin and mucosal contact.
Right. And I mean, the fact that it has been with us for so long means it has become really deeply intertwined with human biology. Like, I was reading about these rare genetic anomalies that show just how devastating that relationship can be when our normal defenses are compromised.
Oh, you're referring to epidermodysplasia verruciformis.
Yes, that one. What exactly is happening with that condition? It sounded terrifying.
It is, it's a very rare genetic disorder. Specifically, it's an autosomal recessive trait.
Meaning you have to inherit the mutated gene from both of your parents to actually get the disease, right?
Correct, yeah. And when an individual has this specific genetic makeup, which usually begins showing up in childhood, their immune system has this very specific blind spot.
A blind spot just for HPV.
Yes. They become highly susceptible to certain types of HPV. And the result is the development of these specific, locally destructive warts all over the body.
Oh, God.
Yeah. They often look flat and are sometimes mistaken for like a fungal infection like tinea versicolor. It's just a vivid example of how when a specific genetic vulnerability exists, this virus is primed to run completely rampant.
But, if this virus has been infecting humanity since the dawn of time and it's this deeply embedded in our biology, it really makes me wonder about the timeline.
What do you mean?
Well, why was cervical cancer a leading cause of cancer deaths for U.S. women up until just like the last few decades? What changed in our understanding to suddenly stop it from being a top killer?
Right, that's the big paradox.
Yeah.
And the key to it lies in how slow the virus operates.
Okay.
I mean, the historical timeline of this virus isn't measured in centuries of explosive town-wiping plagues. It's actually measured in decades inside the individual human body.
So the timeline is internal.
Exactly. An infection contracted today might take, say, 15 to 20 years to fully progress into invasive cancer.
That's a huge window.
It is. And what changed in recent decades wasn't the virus mutating into something less lethal, It was our ability to detect its slow-moving destruction.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Once medical science understood that persistent HPV infection was the primary engine driving cervical cancer, we developed screening methods.
Like the pap smear.
Exactly. To catch those subtle cellular changes during that long 15 to 20-year window, long before they became life-threatening.
Okay, so we basically started interrupting the timeline.
Right.
But if it takes decades to show its worst effects, how does this pathogen move so silently and efficiently between people today? I mean, I sort of picture HPV spreading like weeds, exploiting a microscopic crack in a sidewalk pavement.
That is exactly how it works. The transmission route absolutely relies on intimacy and opportunity, just like a weed finding that tiny crack.
All right.
For the mucosal strains, it spreads through intimate skin-to-skin contact, which means vaginal, anal, or oral sex. And for the cutaneous strains, the ones that cause common warts on your hands or feet, it exploits microscopic epidermal damage combined with fomites.
And a fomite being any inanimate object that can carry the virus, like the prototypical damp locker room floor.
Precisely that. If you have a tiny invisible scratch in your foot and you step where someone with a plantar wart just stepped, well, the virus finds its crack in the pavement.
Wow.
Yeah. And, there's a really dangerous misconception about protection when it comes to the mucosal strains.
Let me guess, condoms.
Yes. Many people believe condoms offer total safety. And while they do significantly reduce the risk of transmission, they cannot offer total protection.
Because they don't cover everything.
Right. They simply cannot cover all the surrounding genital skin where the virus might be shedding. So the contact can happen right around the barrier.
And most of these infections remain completely latent, right, which means people have absolutely no idea they're passing it on. But, going back to that cellular hack for a second, once the weed is in the crack, once the hacker is in the system, how does it physically force our cells to do its bidding and, make more virus?
Okay, so this is where we have to look at the life cycle of a human cell.
Okay.
Our cells have a natural resting phase called the G0 state. It's essentially a biological pause button where the cell is just living, it's not actively dividing.
It's just hanging out.
Right. But HPV cannot replicate its own DNA if the host cell is resting. So the virus forces those infected basal stem cells to completely avoid entering that G0 state.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it overrides the pause button.
It just keeps the foot on the gas.
Exactly. It forces them to keep growing, keep dividing, and keep maturing as they move up toward the surface of the skin.
That's insidious.
It really is. It essentially turns our own cells into relentless viral factories. It drastically increases the production of virions so that by the time that skin cell sheds off the surface of your body, it is just packed with the virus, ready to infect someone else.
Okay, so with 13 million new infections in the U.S. every year, who actually faces the severe consequences of this cellular hijacking? Because you said earlier that 9 out of 10 people just clear it naturally.
Right.
So who is in that vulnerable minority?
Well, the risk profile is layered. First, you have immunocompromised populations.
Okay.
People living with HIV or AIDS, or individuals who have undergone organ transplants and have to take immunosuppressive drugs, they are at a much higher risk.
Because their immune system is distracted or weakened.
Right. Their bodies simply cannot mount the robust defense needed to clear the virus within that typical 2-year window.
But it's not just the immune system acting alone, is it? I mean, I've read there are environmental triggers that can essentially awaken the virus's deadly potential from a latent state.
That's a really vital point. A persistent infection is the prerequisite, but other factors act as catalysts.
Like,
Smoking is a massive trigger. Also using oral contraceptives for more than 5 years, chewing betel nut in certain parts of the world, and heavy exposure to UV light. All of these push a latent HPV infection toward malignancy.
okay, let's focus on smoking for a second because, people associate that with lung cancer. How do the carcinogens in cigarette smoke specifically trigger a virus in the cervix or the throat? That doesn't seem intuitive.
It's fascinating, actually. When you smoke, the carcinogens don't just stay in your lungs. They enter your bloodstream and they actually concentrate in bodily fluids.
Really?
Yes, including cervical mucus and saliva. And these chemicals locally suppress the immune system. They specifically deplete what are called Langerhans cells.
What are those?
They're basically the immune sentinels in your skin and mucosa. They're the guards. And by knocking out those local guards, the smoke gives the latent HPV the exact opening it needs to reactivate and start mutating the cells.
Wow. And, hearing all this talk about cervical cancer and cervical mucus, it's really easy for half of our listeners to think they're off the hook. But men aren't safe from this either, are they?
They absolutely are not. And that misconception costs lives. I mean, about 4 out of every 10 cases of cancer caused by HPV occur in men.
4 out of 10, that's almost half.
Exactly. Every single year, in the U.S. alone, about 16,000 men develop HPV-caused throat, penile, and anal cancers.
That is staggering.
And in fact, the rates of oropharyngeal cancer, which is cancer of the back of the throat, the base of the tongue, and the tonsils, those rates are actually significantly higher in men than in women today.
If men are getting throat cancer at these alarming rates, why aren't they noticing it sooner? Like, are there no physical warning signs when this virus sets up shop?
Well, the early stages of this viral hijacking are entirely invisible.
You feel nothing.
Nothing at all. You won't feel the virus integrating into your DNA, and you won't feel those initial cellular changes. When symptoms do finally appear, they depend heavily on whether it's a low-risk or a high-risk strain.
Okay, so let's break those down. What about the low-risk ones?
For the low-risk types, it manifests as warts. These can be small, rough, occasionally painful lumps that might bleed.
What exactly is a wart on a biological level? Like, what are we actually looking at?
If you look at a wart under a microscope, you'd see the skin essentially overproducing keratin. It's building this thick, tough fortress.
Gross, but fascinating.
Right. That's a process called hyperkeratosis. And inside that fortress, the tiny blood vessels actually clot up, which is why warts often have those little black dots in the center.
Oh, I've always wondered what those were. Okay, and for the high-risk types, the ones driving toward cancer, what do those symptoms look like?
Well, for cancers like cervical cancer, the precancerous changes have 0 symptoms. That's why it's so insidious.
Right.
But as it progresses to late-stage invasive cancer, the warning signs become severe. You're looking at bleeding between periods, pain during intercourse, and a foul-smelling discharge.
And for men with throat cancer?
For throat cancer, it might be a persistent sore throat, difficulty swallowing, or, a lump in the neck that just doesn't go away.
You mentioned earlier that the virus overrides the cell's pause button. How does it physically do that? Like, does it produce some sort of chemical to cause all this cellular chaos?
It does, yeah. It produces 2 main oncoproteins. They're called E6 and E7.
Okay, E6 and E7.
Right. Now, in a healthy, normal cell, we have natural defense proteins named P53 and PRB. You can think of them as the cell's security guards or, the brakes on a car.
I like the brakes analogy.
Yeah. So if a cell gets damaged or starts acting erratically, P53 and PRB step in and stop the cell from dividing so it can't spread the damage.
And the virus attacks those guards.
It completely disarms them. The HPV virus uses its E6 protein to bind to and inactivate P53, and it uses its E7 protein to inactivate PRB.
So it literally cuts the brake lines of the cell.
Precisely. And without those defense proteins, the cell cycle is just completely dysregulated. Damaged DNA accumulates, the cell divides wildly out of control, and you get a neoplastic transformation.
Which is?
That's the literal birth of a cancer.
Wow. Okay, so if the virus successfully neutralizes our cellular defenses and cuts the brake lines like that, What medical counterstrikes do we have left to fight it?
This is where we hit a very harsh reality in modern medicine. There is no treatment to kill the HPV virus itself.
Wait, really?
Really. We do not have an antiviral drug that cures HPV. We can only treat the physical damage it leaves behind.
I honestly find that shocking. I mean, with all of our technological advancements, we can't actually kill the virus inside the body. We just have to freeze, burn, or cut away the tissue it destroys while hoping it doesn't come back.
That is the frustrating truth. For warts, we use manual or chemical destruction to invoke a host immune response.
Like what?
This means cryotherapy, which is freezing the tissue with liquid nitrogen or just surgical removal. And for cervical precancers, we actually have to physically remove the transformed zone of the cervix.
Oh, surgery again.
Yeah. We use procedures like IL-EEP, which is the loop ultrasurgical excision procedure, or a cold knife cone excision.
And what if it progresses beyond precancer, like into actual invasive malignancy?
Then the treatments escalate drastically. We're talking about extensive surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation. And, while it's true that about 60% of genital warts resolve spontaneously over time,
Yeah.
recurrences of HPV-related lesions are notoriously common.
Because the virus is still there, right, lurking in the tissue around the area you just cut or burned.
Yes, exactly. The virus can remain latent in the surrounding seemingly healthy epithelial tissues, just waiting for another opportunity.
Okay, so if treatment only manages the devastation and can't eliminate the root cause, our ultimate weapon against this pathogen really has to be preemptive. Like, we have to stop the hacker before it ever gets access to the system.
Which brings us to one of the greatest triumphs in modern public health, honestly. The HPV vaccine.
Right.
The current version, distributed in the U.S., is Gardasil 9. It protects against 9 different high-impact types of HPV.
So it covers the worst offenders.
It does. This includes the low-risk types 6 and 11 that cause the vast majority of warts, and the heavy-hitter high-risk types like 16, 18, 31, 33, 45, 52, and 58, which are the ones that drive the cancers.
The mechanics of how this vaccine works are brilliant.
They really are.
Like, it doesn't contain any live virus or even any dead viral DNA. It just uses virus-like particles.
Right.
It's essentially like handing your immune system a high-resolution wanted poster of the villain before it ever enters your city. The immune system learns exactly what the viral shell looks like, so if the real virus ever shows up, the body recognizes it and destroys it before it can find that crack in the pavement.
That's a perfect way to describe it. And the data on its success is absolutely staggering. I mean, since the vaccine was introduced, we've seen an 88% drop in cancer-causing infections among teen girls.
88%, that's incredible.
Yes. And we've seen a 40% drop in cervical precancers in vaccinated women.
Wow.
The dosing schedule is straightforward, too. It's 2 doses if given before a child's 15th birthday, separated by 6 to 12 months.
And if they're older?
If they start the series at age 15 or older, or if they're severely immunocompromised, they need 3 doses. And the side effects are very mild, usually just a sore arm or occasionally fainting in teens, which is honestly a common stress response with many adolescent vaccines.
Yeah, teenagers and needles. I get it. But I do have to ask about the age restrictions, though.
Sure.
Why is the vaccine generally not recommended for everyone over the age of 26? Like, if it prevents cancer, shouldn't a 40-year-old get it too?
It's a fair question, but it comes down to the sheer ubiquity of the virus and the likelihood of prior exposure.
Meaning everyone already has it?
Pretty much. HPV is so common that by age 26, the vast majority of sexually active adults have already been exposed to multiple strains of it. And the vaccine is prophylactic. It prevents brand new infections from taking hold, but it cannot clear an infection you already have.
Oh, I see.
Now, some adults between 27 and 45 might choose to get it after talking with their doctor if they have a specific risk for new infections.
Like if they're entering the dating pool again after a divorce or something?
Exactly. But from a broader population health standpoint, the statistical benefit drops significantly after age 26.
Got it. Okay, beyond the needle, what other shields exist on both a personal and public health level to stop the spread and catch the damage early?
Well, routine screening is our vital second line of defense, particularly for cervical cancer. Women are strongly recommended to get pap smears and HPV DNA testing.
How often?
The guidelines generally suggest co-testing every 5 to 10 years starting at age 30. For individuals living with HIV, though, that screening needs to be much more frequent, often every 3 years starting at age 25.
Okay, and on a personal level, what can people do day to day?
On an individual level, voluntary male circumcision has actually been shown to reduce infection risk.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and quitting smoking, as we discussed earlier, removes a major local trigger for malignancy. Also, just wearing shower shoes in public facilities protects against those cutaneous strains on the feet. And, of course, practicing safe sex, even with the limitations of condoms we mentioned.
But, spotting a massive gap in our armor here, since cervical cancer is currently the only HPV cancer with a reliable routine screening test like the Pap smear, doesn't that make the vaccine the absolute only line of defense for men against throat and penile cancers?
That is a critical and often overlooked reality. We do not have a routine FDA-approved equivalent of a Pap smear for throat or penile cancer.
So they're just vulnerable.
Yeah, men who are not vaccinated are essentially flying blind. They're just hoping their immune systems clear the virus before it disarms their cellular defenses and triggers a malignancy.
That's grim. Taking all of this into account, though, combining our screening tools and our vaccines, what does the global battlefield actually look like today?
It's a profound tale of two realities. In high-income nations, the combination of widespread vaccine access and routine Pap smear screening has made cervical cancer highly preventable.
Right.
It is no longer the leading killer of women it once was in the U.S., yet globally, the virus remains an absolute menace.
What are the numbers looking like globally?
Well, in 2022 alone, there were 660,000 new cervical cancer cases worldwide and 350,000 deaths.
350,000 deaths.
Yes, the virus is endemic everywhere, but the mortality rate is really a direct mirror of global health inequities.
It's just a staggering volume of human suffering. Hundreds of thousands of women and tens of thousands of men developing cancer from this virus every single year. It is endlessly frustrating that a pathogen we know exactly how to prevent, that we literally have a highly effective vaccine for, is still claiming that many lives.
It's tragic.
Faced with these numbers, what is humanity's master plan to finally corner and eliminate this virus?
Well, the World Health Organization has laid out an ambitious global strategy to eliminate cervical cancer as a public health problem entirely.
Okay, how?
They call it the 90-70-90 targets. The goal is that by the year 2030, we achieve 90% of girls fully vaccinated by age 15. Then 70% of women globally screened with a high-performance test by age 35, and again by 45. And finally, 90% of women identified with cervical disease actually receiving treatment.
That's a massive logistical undertaking, especially in low-resource settings.
It is, and there is a looming challenge that public health officials are bracing for.
What's the challenge?
Well, as low- and middle-income countries successfully scale up this screening, we are going to see an immediate sharp spike in the detection of invasive cancers in previously unscreened populations.
Oh, I see, because you're finally looking.
Exactly. We are going to find the disease that has been hiding there all along. That means it's not enough to just parachute in testing kits. Global health organizations have to massively expand the actual treatment pathways. I mean, surgery, radiation facilities, and palliative care, just to handle the wave of cases we're about to uncover.
It brings us right back to where we started, that crowded room.
Yeah.
We know the villain. We know exactly how it hacks the cell. For the first time in human history, we have the biological tools to reach into that room, find the virus hiding in the dark, and literally eliminate a cancer from the face of the earth.
We have the tools.
We do. The science is solved. The only question left to answer is whether human society can overcome its own inequities to actually get it done. Stay informed, stay prepared. This has been Outbreak Brief.